Yo, and how's it going, Apple? Welcome back to the Gaming Apple. So today I'm going to be answering a question for you guys. A question that I get asked a lot, right? It is, on my Stam DK, why do I use my bow? And people are saying, why not use sword and board over bow? Why do you use bow over sword and board for 1vxing? And I'm actually going to do a comparison. So sword and board versus bow, and I'm going to throw in dual wield as well. So it's sword and board versus bow versus dual wield, because I think dual wield is still a very valid option, and it's worth mentioning. And in there, you don't see me mentioning two-hand. Now, I use two-hand as a staple for my Stam DK. There are some builds that do sword and board dual wield and bow dual wield, and they're very rare builds, especially the bow dual wield, not very effective. I answered that question in Discord today. But sword and board dual wield is effective, just much more rare to see. So, in general, two-hand is your staple, right? In general, two-hand is your staple, and you either put bow, sword and board, or dual wield with it, right? And I'm going to go into detail about why I've chosen bow for this patch and how you can choose the right one for your playstyle, right? But before that, I have to discuss with you and explain how to build a DK in general, right? I need to give you the foundations, not just all the other skills that go with it, right? I need to tell you exactly, right? Exactly how to build a DK from scratch. So everything that you want to be putting in and then build around it, right? So from scratch, we're going to talk about passives, right? We're going to go in here, we're going to add these passives. We want these passives. If you want detail about why we want these passives, talk to me, but we want these passives. More, great passives I have, right? Then we want over here, so we want our thick skinned for our block damage, right? And is it lagging? There we go. So we want our block damage. We want Dragonknight power, right? We'll put these in. So just for basis, we'll put these in. I'll talk a bit more about them once I put my skills in, right? So we want these abilities in, okay? Now we're on our back bar right now. We're on our back bar. So the first thing that I would do is think about my shielding, so my armor, right? So straight away I'd go for volatile armor, not hardened armor, because volatile still pulls enemy out of stealth, so you can hit that for stealth. Feel that however you want. You can pick either one, but I like volatile. So straight away, right, you want to put this on your back bar. Why do we need this, right? Why do we need this skill? Well, first of all, it gives us our 6,000 resistances, right? For me, it also pulls enemies out of stealth. But not only that, whilst having a Draconic power ability active, so this being a Draconic power ability, right? Whilst having it active, we get 12% extra healing received, right? That's not just healing that we do to ourselves, that's healing that other players do for us as well. All healing coming in. So not healing done, healing received. And that counts as healing done as well, because that counts as vigor and rally and all that good stuff. But it also counts as other people's vigors and other people's, heals, breath of life, all that good stuff. That's all that. There's a lot of healing extra, and we want that. We want this ability active, and that's bread and butter. But I want to explain in detail the skills and why and how I build my DK, right? And then obviously we get spells and done that. Right. So that's our first skill, right? My second skill I will go on to, usually, right, this is usually bread and butter. There are some occasions where you don't run this skill, but I'll talk about that later on. But usually my bread and butter is to chuck on a fragmented, right? And we use this morph because if we go back here, right, this one increases the shield strength. We don't care about the shield. This one increases the duration of major mending, right? We want that increased duration, right? We want that increased duration. So what this does is this gives us major mending, increases our healing received by 16% for 6 seconds. So already through this passive here, right, through this passive for 12%, and this and this ability here for 16%, we'll already get 28% extra healing. That's really fucking strong, guys. That's really strong, right? And not only that, right? Not only that, we need an ability from the skill line. We need to have an ability from the skill line because we need to be activating this ability down here. So Mountain's Blessing. When you cast an Evenheart ability, you and your group gain Minor Brutality. The group's a bonus, but mainly for yourself, you're looking at from 1vx. And that gives you 10% increased weapon damage for those 20 seconds, right? And then you get a bit of ulti on it as well if you're in combat. So basically, it was just, say if you had 5,000 weapon damage, right, and what 10% of 5,000 weapon damage, 500, right? You get 500 extra weapon damage on top of that. So we're talking about bases. That's obviously not going to be exact and shit like that, about percentages, but you get the point. It gives you more damage and more heals from having more weapon damage. So long story short, we want one of these abilities on our bar. Okay, so that's done. Now I'm going to look a bit more at the heal side. So we're going to look at this patch. we want to have Cauterize. Now, not every patch do you want to have Cauterize, not every build wants to have Cauterize, but if I'm going to generalize, this patch where damage is extremely high, I'm sure you know this from bombers, like solo bombing people, and then Nightblades ganking and all that good stuff, and people just doing crazy damage. I mean, heals over time are so important, because what heals over time do is, if you have, say, Cauterize and Vigor, we'll get onto Vigor in a minute, if you Cauterize and Vigor up at the same time, that incoming damage is less noticeable, because you've already negated the effect of that damage by healing it straight away. And that's why heals over time are so important. So you want to be keeping Cauterize up, guys. You really, really do. And it gives us some amazing heals over time. Right, so yeah, we'll say that as a staple, right? Cauterize. Now we're going to go to our front bar. Okay, so we're done with the DK skills for now. We're going to go to our front bar. And we're going to have a look at the two-hand. So I said we want the two-hand, right? So, the two-hand passives, obviously, your maces give you extra penetration, swords give you extra weapon damage, nice to have. You get that from dual wield as well, so a bit of that. But in here as well, when you kill an enemy, you then get increased stamina recovery for 30 seconds. In a 1vx, that is amazing. When I kill a target, I get 30% extra stamina recovery for 10 seconds. Pair that with this in here. I believe it's Battle Roar, yes. Battle Roar, so when you cast an ultimate ability, you gain health, stamina, magic for each point of ultimate ability cost. So you see the sustain coming in through there, and then sustain coming in from killing people. It works well if you're killing people and you're being aggressive and using your resources to your best ability. Alright? It's right, pardon me. So, with that as well, we want Rally. So this is a big one. So you can use Full Momentum, but I use Rally, right? I use Rally for the reason that it gives us our Major Brutality, Stamina Recovery, so we get 20% extra weapon damage, 15% extra Stamina Recovery, and then a big-ass heal. I was talking about heals, guys. We want a burst heal. Cauterize, you can hit it a few times with Fragmented, hit it a few times to kind of boost yourself up, but Rally is an extra amazing burst heal. This is more of a heal over time. This is your burst heal, and it's amazing, right? And that's reason enough to have two-hand as a staple. This ability right here, it gives us our Brutality, Stam Recovery, and a burst heal. That is reason enough to run two-hand as a staple, right? Then we want some kind of execute, right? So I'm going to go for Executioner. I use Executioner because it is since the nerf to the other one. If we go in here, right, this gives you 300%, this gives you 400%. Yes, this one does splash damage, but usually when you're executing, you want one guy down, and that 100% less just isn't worth it anymore. So I use for me anyway. So I use this one to get the max damage out of my execute. So already we've got two staples here. Two staples, and now we're gonna go back onto the DK skills. So we're gonna look at another staple for a DK, right? Another staple. And another staple is going to be Nauseous Breath, right? So Nauseous Breath, what does that do? It gives us a nice direct damage to everybody in the vicinity. There's a cone effect. So in that cone, you'll do 7,000 damage, base damage. So a nice area effect to everybody in there. And then you get a dot. And on top of that, you get 6k pen, which is phenomenal. An AoE 6k pen on demand, right, with a dot and nice damage. Now, when I leap people down, I always have this on them, so I have this dot on them before I leap them. But when I leap people down, sometimes I have a few in front of me, and this doesn't do splash damage. There might be like 10% health each. I'll just hit Nauseous Breath, because this does enough damage to execute people at low health as well. Like AoE execute, I'll kill like 2 people with a Nauseous Breath sometimes. But that's just a bonus. That isn't why we use it. We use it for the dot that it gives, and mainly the fracture, right? Mainly the fracture and the extra pressure that we get. Now, this next ability isn't necessarily a staple. People argue with me. It isn't a staple. There are patches where you don't run it, and there are other alternatives that you don't need that you can run instead of this. However, it is the strongest dot for Stam DK, so if you want pressure and you want to be burning as well as bursting, this skill will become a staple in that regard then, because not only does it apply a poison damage effect, so it does your initial damage and then there's a poison damage effect, but that initial damage effect then applies where is it? It is in here. So enemies hit with the initial attack are afflicted with the poison status effect, so it is a double dot. Right, and then that poison status effect, what that does then is that gives you stamina back. So it gives you 500 stamina back, and that's just a little bonus, right? And on top of that, you snare them for hitting them. That's a 30% movement speed when you hit them with claw or breath. So that's always something to keep in consideration with that. But yeah, pair this double dot with breath, and all of a sudden, right? All of a sudden, you have got pressure, right? A lot of pressure. Okay. Right, so that's staples down. You see how there's abilities still coming out, but we haven't talked about Vigor, right? So we're going to put Vigor in. So let's go down here to Vigor. Where did Vigor go? It's Fighters Guild, isn't it? Where's Fighters Guild? No, it's not Fighters Guild. It's Assault. Forgot where Vigor was. So we'll have Vigor, right? And Vigor will go nicely here. Okay, so we've got another heal over time. We'll just chuck Continuous in, Frenzy, all that stuff, right? We'll just chuck them passives in. You can do your passives later on. I was just showing you what is necessary. So now we have Vigor and we have Cauterize. We got 2 heals over time now with a burst heal, right? And then with 12% extra healing from this with resistances and 16% extra healing with this with the minor brutality that this gives you. You're seeing how all these buffs are coming into play with an execute and burning them down, okay? But we don't have speed, we don't have a snare removal, okay? So we're going to talk from the bow perspective first. This is where you start diversifying into which build you want to be. So we're going to look at a bow build to start off with, right? We're going to look at the bow build first, okay? And in a bow build, what do we have, right? Let's go down to bow. What do we have? We have abilities that we don't need. So the only ability that I'd really use is Poison Injection for the Venom Arrow. It's an extra dot, right? And you pair that with the Master's Bow, and it can interrupt players that are rezzing. It can put a nice little dot on them, and then it can increase your weapon damage against targets affected by this Venom Arrow when you have the Master's Bow. But we ain't running this, okay? We ain't running this patch because we haven't got the space for it. But what we do with the spaces, right, you see these passes, we don't need this one here, we're not using this. Critical chance on the back bar, extra healing, right, critical chance means you crit heal more often, okay? So that's nice, but we're not running both for the crit chance. No, we're not running for any of this, we're running it for the major expedition. And why would you run a bow just for one passive, basically? And I mean, we know we got the crit on top, but mainly one passive. Well, right, it doesn't cost any magic to run this without, right, usually, right, to get your snare removal and speed, you'd have to go down to here, okay? Where's the Sijik? So you'd want to go down to Accelerate and run Race Against Time. And this basically grants the... I said I had no points there. Points? 0? I've got 220 left. What's this on about? Right, anyway, right, this gives you Major Expedition, critical damage. We don't care about the critical damage because I'm running Malakath. The critical damage is a bonus. It's not a necessity, right? It's nice, but it isn't a necessity. The necessity is the fact that on our bank bar, we get, upon activation of this ability, it removes all snares and mobilizations from you and grants immunity to them for 2 seconds, right? So basically it does what Shuffle does. So it gives us immunity to snares and mobilizations, and then gives us 30% movement speed on top of that. So that is major. That is major. We want both of those things. We want snare movability on command, and we want speed on command. But in bow, we already get the major, we already get the major exposition, right? So in this ability, instead, in this slot that we have left, we can then go look at the medium armor passive. So we run into medium armor, right? So for Shuffle, now Shuffle gives us major evasion, decreasing damage done by area of abilities attacks by 20%. Now that's really nice. Shuffle is really nice, and you want that when you're running a bow build, because for that, and it gives us our immunity to snares and mobilizations. On top of that, it puts us into a medium armor build, right? So on this build, I can then run Armor Master. So Armor Master on the back bar is basically, well, I don't want to come out of this because it will, actually, if I just, what we'll do is we'll confirm that, so that leaves us like that for now, right? So we'll confirm that. But that allows us to run this kind of skill on the back bar, right? So on the back bar, while you have an arm ability slotted, your max health is increased by 5%, whatever. And when you use an arm ability while in combat, your physical and spell resistance is increased by 5.8k. So if we look at my resistances right now, right? Look at my resistances right now. We go from 2,200 that, right? We off up to here. So all of a sudden our resistances have gone up. And then I'll pop this potion for physical resistance. So my physical resistance now goes up again. And then we're at 28,000 physical spell resistance and 30,000 physical. And then when we pop Shuffle whilst in combat, it won't proc now because we're not in combat. But whilst in combat, this will then give us an extra 5,800 resistances. And we're not at max resistance as well because I haven't got put any into Resolve and Heavy Armor and that stuff, right? So our resistances go up a bit more in general from there, okay? So yeah. That is really nice to know, and that puts us into medium armor, which means we can put stuff into crit chance, right? So we go into crit chance, and then we got more stam recovery, a lot more stam recovery. That's 20% extra stam recovery, and I'm just in 5 pieces. I'm not even in 6-piece medium, right? Usually I run 6 pieces, but we're in 5 pieces right now for what I'm running. Then this doesn't really matter, but agility, so we're getting 10% extra weapon damage, 12% if you go into 6. and then extra movement speed, right? So a lot of extra movement speed by being in medium armor, and then roll dodge reduction there, 20% roll dodge reduction. So you're already seeing, you know, through here we're going to get a lot of movement speed when I decide now to roll dodge and move around. A lot of movement speed on, like, literally, move. If I'm snared, I got 60, imagine I got 60% reduced movement speed to me. I hit this button into this, and all of a sudden I am now running 30% extra with extra speed, rather than minus 60% from being snared by some potential players, right? And so that's something to keep into consideration, right? Let's get back on to here. Okay, so now if we go up there, so I've explained why I want to have shuffle, or like why shuffle's so nice on bow. But let's look at this last skill on a bow build, right? Let's look at this last skill. So on a bow build, we'll look at uppercut, right? So we'll go uppercut into dizzy. And I'm going to put leap in, just because, you know, leap is also a staple. I should have mentioned this earlier. It is, which one is it? I don't want the fucking shield, I want to take flight. So, but yeah. I want this leap, that's a staple. Literally AoE damage, big damage, burst damage, stuns them all, knocks them all back. Yeah, we want leap, it's amazing, and it gives us our resources back on upon ult. So yeah, we want that. Dizzy Swing is a stun on command. People think, oh, it doesn't stun when you, like, instantly anymore. Sorry, by the way. Jesus. Alright, so yeah, it doesn't stun on command anymore. Like it used to, but I prefer how it is now. It sets them off balance, so then you can medium weave or do it. So you can have a medium weave to stun them, or then you can hit it again and stun them. Either way, you can get a stun on this, and it's a lot more controlled stun, and I like that. I like that a lot, right? So that's burst combo there. And yeah, right now I'm just explaining my own build, my old build, and right now I'm just gonna put. I'm not putting anything back here because there's no staple, right? You could run, we could run. What is it? Corrosive back bar, or you could go down here and you run. What is it? Where's Sigil gone? Sigil, there you go. Or you run temporal guard for the damage reduction, right? The 5% damage reduction. So, but you can play around with that ulti slot. I've seen some people even run barrier, right? But that's just flex. But this is where you end up at with this, right? So you get amazing movement. So the bow movement is phenomenal. Really, really phenomenal, right? You hit shuffle, roll dodge, and I can kite for days. And it doesn't cost me any magic. And that's important because we already have free magic abilities. And with free magic abilities, I do not need magic potions or a magic set to sustain free magic abilities. You can sustain these comfortably just through ulting. Right? You can send them comfortably through ulting. But when you add a fourth magic ability, you then need to think about tri-stat potions, or you need to think about a magic sustain set, or something extra to give you more magic. And that's important to think about, because that would then mean that I wouldn't be able to use my physical resistance potions, because I need to run tri-stats, so my resistances go down on that front. Or I am running an extra magic set, so my stam sustain goes down, or my weapon damage goes down. You gotta think about that sustain just for one extra ability. So let's have a look at the sword and board side of it now. So we've talked about bow. Let's talk about the sword and board, and let's see what changes, right? So it becomes a lot easier to run, right? It becomes a lot easier to run, because all of a sudden now you get these passives, right? You get, what is it, reduced cost to 100 abilities, and reduces the cost of blocking. So blocking becomes a lot cheaper, and then the amount of damage that you can block is increased by 20%. On top of that, bash costs less, and you do more bash damage, increased projectile damage that you can block, and then you move faster whilst blocking. So all of them are really beneficial. And on bow, right, on bow, only really one is, but that's how it goes sometimes, right? So this is giving us a lot more out of the passives. But do you see me running any sword and board skills? No, I haven't really put them on. Yes, you can run, if you want to run shield wall here, you can. It isn't a necessity. It isn't why we run sword and shield. It's a bonus, right? I wouldn't run ransack or puncture for the fracture, because I already have toxic breath and it's enough for me. It's AoE. I'm not going to be doing another one. You could run low slash, right? Deep slash for either heroism or for damage reduction that they do to you, right? But I don't feel like I need that. That's in the cauterize slot that you'd be putting that. You'd be replacing cauterize for that ability, because you want movement, you want heals, you want protection, you want vigor. Okay, so that's the cauterize slot, and for me, cauterize is still stronger, right? And that's just my opinion, and that's how I feel. So let's talk about race against time again. So race against time would be going here, because we don't get any speed right now on sword and board. All that's given us is major evasion for damage reduction, and then our mobility to speed, to the snares and the mobilizations, right? So if we go down to Sigil, what we'll do is we'll put accelerate on, so race against time. Now, this one will go here. So all of a sudden, we now have our speed back. We have our speed and mobilizations. Just like Bo, on command, Bo could get immunity to snares from hitting shuffle, and then move fast from roll dodge, right? We now get that from one ability, which is really handy. Really handy. But at the cost of magic. And yes, my one was at the cost of stamina. But we're in a stamina build, right? Stamina is a lot easier for us to sustain. We can build into stamina and get damage from building into stamina. We now have to build somewhat into magic, right? We have to build somewhat into magic, or into ult regen, or, you know, tripods. We're losing something, right, from doing this. We don't just gain this. We got now 4 magic abilities. I can't sustain this without tripods, and just through using ulti, without like a sustained set, right, okay? And so I'll be wanting to use tripods or a sustain set. So you think about that. My damage will probably go down. My resistances would go down from not having physical resistance potions. But that doesn't matter because we have sword and board now. We can block a lot more. In the open, we'll be doing a lot better because we can now hold our ground in the open a lot more. But we will reach a point, right, with this build where we just get zerged down because we don't roll dodge for this. So on bow, if you roll dodge, you then avoid all attacks. This, you hit this and run away, right, and block. But you don't want to be rolling too much with this kind of build, right? So you're going to reach a point where when you're not roll dodging, you're just taking too much damage that you can handle. And that's the point with bow. You can have so much on you, but if you roll dodge and get around corners, you can avoid that, like the majority of that damage, and then the AoE damage that you do take, you are getting reduced damage from shuffle, and you have that movement. So that's something to take into consideration. Sword and board right now is just an easier way to play DK, but it has less potential in my opinion when it comes to 1vx. People will hate on me for that, but I mean, if you look at, say, me, Fully, Nasty, for some reason, do you think it's a coincidence that we all managed to start running bow build in our Stam DK this patch? It's not a coincidence. We 1vx. And I'm telling you right now, this is the best potential for 1vx. I've played Sword and Board, I've played Do Wield, right? Bow right now is the best potential, but this is how you would run Sword and Board, right? That is how you would run it. Okay, so that is how you'd run Sword and Board. Let's have a look at Do Wield, right? And Do Wield you can X with. You can X. I'm not saying you can't X Sword and Board. You can X with Sword and Board. I have X with Sword and Board, right? I'm just saying I prefer bow, and I'm telling you this is why I prefer bow, right? And you can X with Do Wield. Admittedly, it becomes much harder to X with Do Wield because, in my opinion, Do Wield is more 1v1 focused. Even if they say, oh, it's, you know, we can X with it. Yes, I'm sure you can X with it, right? But it is more 1v1 focused because to make Do Wield effective, right, you want to be taking out this, right? You want to be putting in something like Blood Craze. So we'll put in over here Blood Craze, right? You can run even more Blood Craze or Rendering Slashes. Rendering Slashes is definitely more 1v1 focus, right? Blood Craze, we're looking more Rexing for extra heals, right? And you pair that with Master Do Wield on the back bar for the big ass dot that you get from the back bar. So now you would definitely be wanting Toxic Breath, Venomous Claw, and Blood Craze. And I say this is more 1v1 focus because 3 dots, like literally having these 3 abilities that are dot damage, is burning down. This will burn your opponent down, right? And burning people down works much better in 1v1s. Look at Mag DKs. Mag DKs burn people down, and they 1v1 so strong, but their 1vx not so strong, right? And that's the same kind of concept here, right? You're burning somebody down, right? But you're not getting as much burst on like the AoE, but you can still burst. So what we'll do is we'll put in. I'll show you how you can still burst. So we'll put in Fossilize over here, right? Where is Fossilize? So, alright, Petrify here. So we'd put in Fossilize here, and we'd take out Uppercut, right? Because we've got enough abilities. We've got Venomous Claw, Toxic Breath, Twin Slashes. We can use what is it called? It's called Blood Craze. So we run that with the Master Do Wield. That can be burst. So we got enough damage, burn, and then take flight with Execute. So we're looking for a stun that gives us our, what is it? That gives us our minor brutality from the Mountain's Blessing, right? So we're looking for that. We want that. But you can see magic ability, right? We've now just increased our magic. We'll talk about that a bit more later on, right? And I was talking about having minor brutality down here. So we no longer need this skill for the minor brutality, but we still get it for the healing. But what you could do now is switch out this ability for this, right? And have, instead of having fragmented shield, right, you could now have cauterized for a heal over time and still get your brutality from here. But then you're missing out that 16% extra heal from the fragmented shield. So it's something to think about. And you could put fragmented there and then have cauterized here, but then you're missing out on your snare removal, right? What I've seen a lot of people do, and what I've found most effective for this kind of playstyle is to have cauterized. Cauterized, having that heal over time is very nice. And what a lot of dual-wielding builds have done, they haven't had a snare removal, and not having a snare removal with speed is you're just handicapping yourself in a 1v8 situation, because if you don't have speed and movement, you'll reach a point where there'll be too many people, too much damage in a certain situation that you just can't take it anymore, and you can't get out of it, you can't do anything about it, and you will just die, you will fall over. No matter how good your healing is, no matter how good your your damage is, and your resistance is, you'll reach a point where you break, right? And that is what Race Against Time helps with. It helps you not break as fast as you would from standing still. So we put that there, right? But what you would want to do now is, for your monster set, you would want to run Malabeth, right? So you would want to run Malabeth. And if we just come out of... I'm sure you know what Malabeth does. It gives you the Tether heal, right? And you dot them up with Malabeth, right? So you want to run Malabeth monster set. So you'd have a heal tether to them with Twin Slashes for Blood Craze. You'd run the Vatishran 2-hand front bar. You'd have Pariah Body, Malakath, 100% Malakath on this kind of build, and then take flight. And you'd want a lot of penetration, but it's viable. It'll work, right? And you don't want this here. You want Temporal Guard, right? But it'll work, okay? But it's struggling a lot more. It's not, you gotta burn them down and burst. You don't have as much burst. You want to burn and move, and it's harder. It's not doable, right? It's not impossible, but it's harder. It has less potential to X than the bow build, because when the bow build, you go back here, oh, all of a sudden you have shuffle, you have snare movability right there, right? You have snare movability right there, you have your brutality, your extra heals, you got your resistances with your extra heals from the resistances, then you've got your cauterized here, vigor, just really good utility. Then on the front bar, you got your uppercut for burst, and yeah, you got all that. I've gone into massive detail in here. I don't know how long this video has been going on for, but people ask me nearly on a daily basis. I kid you not, nearly on a daily basis, I get asked, why do I run bow over sword and board? And I explain it to people the best I can each time. But I would like to refer you to a video rather than explain it every single time if somebody asks. So this is the video that I'm making for that. And I hope you guys do find it helpful why that in the Blackwood patch I am deciding to run bow over sword and board or dual wield for my axing. Simply put, I think bow has more potential than sword and board. And other X's have found that as well. And maybe it isn't as fun as dual wielding two-hand or sword and board, being able to tank out in the open, but it is what it is. This has more potential to survive and kite and then burst people down with the ability to do massive pressure through just these two abilities. If you apply Witch Knights, if you refer back to my main build video for this patch, you'll see what I've done for that. But yes, guys, that is hopefully helped you out in a very long-winded explanation in the comparison between bow versus sword and board versus dual wield. Honestly, guys, I hope you found this video helpful. If you did find this video helpful, then please smash that like button. Drop a comment down in the comment section down below, because you know that I always love to hear from you guys. If I'd missed anything, if I still still want something explained, then ask down below, guys. I will do my best to explain. This video is me explaining to people who had questions to ask. So if you've got questions, I will answer them, right? As long as they're not asked ignorantly or presented ignorantly. Hate people who are ignorant in my comment section. Does my head in. I got to the point where I'm ignoring them. But guys, if you generally have questions that you want to ask, and yeah, you have queries, ask me, guys. I'm here to help. Come join the Discord. The link for my Discord is down in the description below, where I answer these queries often in my Discord as well, help you guys with builds, and then talk about future content. So come join there as well, guys. And without any further ado, subscribe, guys, to stay up to date with all my latest content and to become part of the Apple Army. Guys, I love you all. If you want to come see me live and see how this build does in my streams, then come join me over on Twitch. But any further ado, guys, I love you all. I love the Apple Army, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out for now. Bye-bye.